please state your first name, age, and city for us?
Yeah, so my name is Melaysha. I am 24 and I live in Avondale, Arizona.
Can you tell us how many children you have, their ages, and if you are currently pregnant?
So I have one son. He is 2. He's about to be 3 in February, and he's my only one for right now. Yeah.
So what is rewarding about being a mother? What challenges do you face as a mother?
Oh God, I feel like I'm already gonna start crying. I think just everything is rewarding. Seeing him every day, waking up and just being able to experience everything with him. It's been hard lately just because I've been working so much and just spending that time away from him. I know I work for him, but it's just, it's super hard to be away. And he's learning so much and I'm missing out on those things. And that's really hard because me and my spouse, we're the only providers. We don't get any help. So it's like, I know I have to do it, but it sucks, honestly.
How was your pregnancy experience? For example, was it planned? What was your overall outlook about being pregnant? Did you have any complications, support?
So no, he was not planned. I was actually planning on starting birth control just because I had started school and I wanted to wait at least until I was late 20s, early 30s. That was my ideal goal, but I mean, he happened and I don't regret it at all. My pregnancy was easy for the most part. It was just, I did have preeclampsia, so that was pretty hard. I gained a lot of weight pretty quick and I went over what I was supposed to, so that was hard. After he was born, I had found out that I have my blood type and his blood type don't mix, so technically I wasn't supposed to carry to term. They were surprised about that, and I was a little upset because I felt like they should have done more to check for my blood and then also my spouse's blood. I don't know, I just felt like I didn't get that extra care that I should have gotten or extra attention, and when my son was born, it was just scary because his heart, it kept throughout my labor, he kept having where when I would get a contraction, his heart rate would slow down quite a bit. And they were pretty attentive about that. They caught on, they were trying to do everything to help me. And towards the end when I was pushing and they completely lost his heart rate. They couldn't find it. So I had to get cut and they were able to get him out, and it was because the cord was wrapped around his neck or whatever, but it was scary. That's what scares me about having another kid, just knowing that I have these certain conditions and that it potentially will just end in a miscarriage if we do try, just because of my blood type and my husband's blood type. So that's pretty scary to know. But other than that, it was an okay experience, I guess.
So when you talk about your blood type, so you didn't find out till after the fact, or while you were in labor or shortly after birth, that you had some sort of issues? Because you, like you mentioned, you're kind of hesitant or nervous for next time if you decided to, because you have these conditions. So would you say you found out about these conditions after the fact or later, or they came about during pregnancy?
So I found out as soon as he was born. As soon as he was born, they came in and they were questioning oh, did you know your blood type or anything? I was like, no, I never. As soon as I got pregnant, I went to the doctors. They never did any blood work on me to check my levels to make sure my hormones were doubling how they were supposed to. They didn't do anything. And so it was after they found out, they were like, oh, well, he's more than likely your husband's blood type. And I was like, okay. And they were like, yeah, yours and his blood type don't mix. My body attacks his. So they had to start him on medication to make sure he didn't have any complications after. And that just upset me because I did have a previous pregnancy when I was 19 that ended in a miscarriage. But I know when I was for the first 2 weeks of when I officially found out, they were doing blood work on me and they were making sure that everything was okay, and I was just confused as to why this time they didn't.
Were both of those pregnancies in Arizona?
Yeah.
Was it the same, like, hospital or care provider, different ones?
Yeah, so the first time it was, I had insurance through my job. The second time it was through government insurance. It was Access that I had.
Where did you or do you get advice about or information on pregnancy, childbirth, and or parenting? Do you think this type of information was or is useful or relevant to you?
I get everything from online. I know it's bad, but I go online and I don't feel like it's relevant to me just because it's mostly white women who are talking about it. They have their little blog post and whatever, and it's not relevant at all. Like, I feel like they're usually in their 30s, they have multiple kids, their pregnancies were planned, like, it's hard. Or I try to go to YouTube and I try to look for like people within my age range that are similar backgrounds or whatever, but I don't really have anyone I feel like to talk to or, you know, get advice from. I mean, I have my mom, but our relationship isn't the best, so it's sort of hard to like reach out and ask her for things. So those are my only like options right now.
So would you say, like you mentioned, like your age, and that's another thing that I want to do with OMUS, because we're all relatively around the same age. So like young millennial parents, right? So do you have any like other parent, like friends who are similar age, who are parents, or like relatives or cousins or something that have children?
No, all of my friends, they're childless. They're sort of scared to have kids, I feel like, at this point. Like, and they see me and they're like, oh, how do you do it? And, you know, and it's like, well, I mean, it's not easy. I'm going to be honest. Like, it's not easy, but like I said, it's worth it. Like, for me, it's worth it. But I always tell them, like, don't ever feel obligated to have kids, especially if you're not ready, you know? Like, don't ever feel forced. But that's where it's hard, just because a lot of my friends, they don't have kids. So it's not like I can be like, hey, let's do play dates, or, you know, let's get advice from one another, because they can't really relate to what I'm going through. And then with my cousins, they're all older than me, so they are in their 30s, so it's like hard for me to come and be like, hey, like, you know, and their kids are much older. They're like 8, 9, so it's just hard. It's really hard.
What type of things do you do to make sure that you're healthy? So healthy for yourself and for your child and your family. What sort of things make it difficult for you to achieve good health?
Well, I would say definitely like our nutrition. My son is plant-based. That was something I always wanted for him, just because I didn't want to introduce him to too many like animal products, I guess, at such a young age. And like, I know I struggle with eczema, and dairy and everything has a lot to do with that, so I just didn't want that to be something that he has to deal with. So I cut out a lot of stuff for him. I tried to like make sure we go hiking. I mean, he's still so little, so it's hard to like do those things, but like I'll go to the mountain and we'll walk at the base of it, or we go to the park and play. Like, he has a lot of energy, so I mean, it's easy to be running around with him and making sure like I keep him busy. But I feel like he's the reason why I sort of stay active. It's because I know that like he just wants to do everything. Like, he has so much energy, so I got to keep up with him. I don't smoke or drink or anything. I don't really care to, so I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. I don't know. That's such a hard question. I feel like that's pretty much it. I just try to keep him outdoors, honestly.
So you would say more so, in order to stay healthy, it's more so like lifestyle choices?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
And then, is there anything that makes it difficult for you to like achieve health or be the way you want to be in terms of like health-wise or?
Yeah, just working. It's such a like trying to maintain the balance of work and home life, and it's like when I'm in my work mode, it's so hard for me to remember that I need to like slow down a little bit and just sort of go with the flow. And like I tend to eat out when I have my overtime days, and like I'm like rush. And so that's a really bad habit that I'm trying to break, and just remember that I can make food at home, and it's better for me to make food at home because I know what I'm putting in my food. But just maintaining that balance, because of COVID, it's made my job, like our workload, increase. So I feel like I'm just always at work, and I don't have time to like be at home. And I know like that does have an effect on my health and, you know, my son's health, because I mean he has to deal with it as well. But just, I guess it's really hard maintaining the work-life balance.
What type of support, resources, or events would you like to see in your area?
It's so hard right now because of this COVID thing. I would say like my biggest fear about going out and stepping out of my comfort zone is being judged by others and how I choose to parent my son, you know, and taking him to other events where other moms are gonna be, or like group settings. So I would say just maybe play dates or like open discussions like this, where I don't feel like I have to be that perfect mom, and sort of like actually feel comfort, like where if my son is throwing a tantrum or whatever, that I could just have that peace of mind of knowing that I'm not going to be judged by the other people there. That's what honestly holds me back from trying things like that. So I would just say like just having those discussions of normalizing that being a mom is hard, being a parent is hard, especially at a young age, and doing it by yourself. And even if you do have help, like it's still difficult no matter what. And just not feeling like I'm gonna be judged, like remove that judgmental factor. Because in the back of our head, I know we all do it as parents. Like you see a kid at the store and you're just like, oh, look at them, they're misbehaving, you know? And I gotta take my own advice, but I feel like that would be awesome. Just really making an environment where it's judge-free.
And where do you think that judgment comes from? Like why do you think, or where do you think that comes from? Like a moms or parents, or
just society as a whole. I mean, we're raised that way. Like I know growing up, I would hear my mom saying like, oh, that kid isn't behaving, or it's because of the parent, or the parent's not raising them right. And it's like, no, it's a kid, they're learning their emotions. Like, and I've learned that, especially becoming a mom, is seeing that every single day they're learning a new emotion, and they're learning how to express it, and we can't tell them that they're wrong for doing that, you know? So it's just, I think having those talks to be able to let other people know that, it will help future generations. And it starts with us as parents, you know, making sure that we show our kids that, hey, you don't need to judge someone because you don't know their situation, you don't know their home environment. Like that's not our place to, you know, pass judgment. And if you are like having those play dates or whatever, like teaching our kids that if you see a kid that's upset, maybe go like comfort them, find a way, give them a hug, you know, like just make it where it's more loving and nurturing, and not so much like, oh, look at them, you know, like help the mom out too. Like, hey, you sit down, I'll grab your kid and I'll calm them down, you know.
What are some of the things that are taboo about pregnancy, birth, or parenting? So what are people being like doctors, the media, social media, community, or other parents, what are they not discussing that you feel like needs to be discussed?
Oh, that's a pretty deep one. I feel like My biggest thing was when I was pregnant and I would go to the doctors, like I didn't feel comfortable to ask questions just because the doctors always rush through it. It's like, oh, you're here for like 5 minutes, the baby's heartbeat's fine, like go. Instead of sitting down and actually them saying like, hey, do you have any questions? Do you have any concerns? And actually feeling like I have the option to talk to them, I feel like that would honestly have helped a lot, because obviously like I had no idea what it was going to be like being a mom until after I became one. And just also having resources for us when we're at the hospital or if we're at home or wherever we are, wherever we choose to deliver, just having more of like a support system that comes in, like counselors and whatever after the fact, and saying like, hey, how are you feeling? Like actually making sure that we're okay, because after I gave birth, I felt guilty. I felt like I was a bad mom. Like I was hit with all these emotions and I didn't know how to process it. And I was just like, I was learning everything and I didn't get any support. It was like, oh, you gave birth, go home, you know? And it's like, they didn't check on my mental health, on how I was doing. And I feel like that's where a lot of taboo comes into. It's like not talking about postpartum depression and getting on birth control after the fact of giving birth, which is like another thing I was upset about, because the next day after giving birth, they gave me birth control. They said I couldn't leave the hospital without getting birth control, some form. And so I was like, okay, I planned on getting on birth control, but I wish I would have waited, because I gave birth, my hormones are like all over the place, and then I'm putting more hormones in my body, you know, like just those things. Like it's upsetting, because it's like how I feel matters. Like don't take that away from me, and don't make it seem like I can't talk about it, you know, like I have to suffer in silence. So
in the United States, Black and Native American women have some of the worst maternal and infant health outcomes. For example, the number of women who die in childbirth, infant deaths, etc. Why do you think that is, and how does this make you feel?
I feel like because they don't take us serious, honestly. They think if we're asking for help that we either want something out of it, like some sort of, like, oh, she just wants drugs, or oh, she just, you know, like that we're not sincere about how we're feeling, you know? And I feel like they honestly, I mean, given the history of the US, they've never really cared about minorities, you know, especially Black and Native people. So it's sort of like, how do you expect that to change when you look at our healthcare system and it's like we still don't have that many POC doctors who are there to care for us, you know? It's mostly white people, and that was my biggest fear, is having a white doctor. And I know that's going to sound messed up, but I was just worried that they weren't going to take, if I was saying, hey, like, I'm scared because I feel like this is what's going on, or, you know, that they were just going to brush it off. And during that time, there was a lot of reports of women going into labor and saying like, hey, I'm having this complication, or something doesn't feel right, and then they were ending up dead in the hospital. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's scary, and I know it has to start with us making that change. So, you know, like, we do need more Black doctors, we do need more just people of color that are doctors that will listen to us and not just brush us under the rug, you know, like, and not necessarily just doctors, just midwives or doulas, and, you know, like, just, we got to really go in and change, because if not, it's just going to continue the same way.
So what factors do you think contribute to a healthy pregnancy, an ideal birth, and a successful transition into parenting?
Definitely choose who you surround yourself with when you are pregnant, because you do take on their energies, and that can dictate a lot on how you feel when you're pregnant. And I wish I would have enjoyed my pregnancy more and just taken time to, like, just be pregnant. I felt like I was trying so hard to, like, focus on school and all these other things that didn't really matter, and just it's those 9 months that you're never going to get back. So always just every little thing, take every little picture and just surround yourself with, like I said, a good environment, a good support system. If you need to go to therapy or counseling, just take that time to do that, because in the long run, it's going to be better for you and your child. I would say be stubborn. Be stubborn with your birth plan. Be stubborn. Like, obviously, if you need to make changes, don't be too stubborn. Like, go with what you have to do, but be stubborn. Don't tell people that whatever you want is unrealistic. I wanted a natural birth. I wanted a water birth. I wanted all these things, and I felt like I just sort of gave in, and I should have been more stubborn. I should have been like, no, this is what I'm going to have because it's my birth. This is how I want to bring my child into this world. And I just think being stubborn it's good. It's what we need and deserve. And also, I feel like if we used our voice a little bit more when we were like speaking with whoever on how we wanted our birth plans, and not just giving in so easily and being like, oh, okay, like I'll do whatever you say. Like, I feel like that would also have a big change in why Black women are, experiencing like either maternal death or their babies aren't making it, because it's like we need to use our voices more and saying like, no, like if you're not going to give me the care that I want, then I will go somewhere else and get it from someone who will give me the care that I want. So I feel like that will definitely make the whole delivery process easier. And even after, like saying like, hey, I feel that I'm a little sad, or whatever the case may be, just using our voices and not being afraid to go elsewhere if need be. Like, look, we got to look for the care that we deserve. And I would say just after going through childbirth and transitioning and dealing with postpartum depression, don't be afraid to seek help. Like, it's perfectly fine. I mean, I feel like I'm still dealing with postpartum depression. It's almost 2 years later, so it's not something that goes away right away, especially because I haven't dealt with it, and I didn't deal with it from the beginning. It's still something that affects me, and I just wish I would have addressed it when it was there. And I feel like that would have made having a newborn and transitioning from newborn to the later baby stages and now toddler, like that would have helped so much, just because there's a sense of resentment that I have towards myself that I didn't do that, because I felt like I wasn't the best mother to my son that I could have been in the beginning part. And even now it's like I should have just spoken up and said, hey, I need help. Like I need to talk to someone. Like I need to, get this out. So I feel like that would definitely help a lot of people.
So why, like you mentioned, like you wanted a natural birth and a water birth. So why didn't that happen?
Well, I got tested for I think it's strep B, and I guess I came out positive. So they said I had to be hooked up to an IV, and if I was on an IV, I couldn't be in water. And then after I had talked to the hospital, because I was on access, like I could only give birth at certain places and not be charged through the roof. So I asked the hospitals, like, do you guys offer water births? And they said no. They're like, you could stand in the shower, but that's about it. And I was like, that's not really what I want. So that sort of went out the window. And then I almost made it just naturally, but I was getting cluster contractions, so I would get 3 contractions back to back that would last for like minutes. So going through like 5 hours of that, I was exhausted. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And so I did give in, and I got the epidural. I don't regret getting the epidural, just because childbirth is it's no joke. Like that's a whole different type of pain. It's an outer body experience. I legit thought I was gonna die, like just from the pain alone. So if I could do it again, I'm definitely, now that I have my own insurance, I wanna look for a provider who's gonna give me what I want. Like I want a natural water birth, and I'm gonna stick with it, and that's what I'm gonna get. And I don't know. I wish, obviously I can't do it over, but I wish I could redo my pregnancy and the whole thing over. I feel like my son was born into a very tense environment, and I notice now it feels like he has anxiety, and I don't know if it's because of that. That's what I feel like, just because it was chaotic in the room. There were so many doctors in there, like the NICU people came in, and it was like 5 doctors for him, and then I got all these doctors. I had students in my room, and I'm worried about my son, and then I have this resident or whatever they're called, like he's learning how to do stitches on me, and I'm just like, I just want my son on my chest. Like, what? Like, why is all this going on right now? Like, it was just chaotic. So yeah.
Did they ask you if it was okay to have the students in there?
They did, but I felt like I was just so like focused on other things. I just sort of said yeah to brush it off, like just give me my son, that's all I wanted, because I couldn't hear him crying. So I was more focused on him, and so I felt like I didn't get, like, it wasn't the best time to ask me, you know, like, I just gave birth. My son, he's not crying, and like, you guys want students in here, multiple students, and like, I'm bleeding, I'm high on drugs right now. Like, I don't know really what's going on, you know, so.
Who was, did you have any support people in the room with you?
Yes, I had my sister, my husband, and then Hannah, she was there as well, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.